Hello everyone, I'm Tim from Tim's PC and I build custom PCs to suit anyone's needs or budget. Also live stream my builds and repairs for transparency and educational purposes. So if you would like to get an awesome new PC you like to see it put together live, send me a message today. Alright, so tonight we're going to be building Jordan's PC. So, well, Jordan hit me up pretty recently actually, I think. And just like, yeah, look, really wanted a gaming PC, had a budget, didn't want to waste too much money, wanted to get sort of best price performance that he could, but he still wanted it to look decent and all that at the end of the day. So let's just get started. We'll go through the components here. So we have the Asus Tough Gaming B550 Plus Wi-Fi motherboard here, so we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail when we unbox it. Just below here we've got the Ryzen 3600, I should say, almost called a 5600 then. It's a 3600. We have an Asus dual RTX 3060 here. What else have we got here? We've got a 500GB Crucial P1 NVMe SSD. We've got a 750 watt Cooler Master 80 Plus bronze power supply. We've got a 2TB Crucial BX500 SSD. We've got 16GB of Spectrix D41 3200MHz CL16 memory. And we're going to put it all together in one of these Silverstone cases. We've got a few people here. Hey Dylan, hey Corey, how you going? Good to have you with us, guys. So yeah, this case here, it comes with 4 Silverstone ARGB fans. They're the Silverstone Air Blazers. So really good value there. You can pick these up for about $100. So we'll have a look at that when we actually go to build in it. But it should be a really straightforward, simple build tonight. So let's get started. So we can push our 3060 over here because it's just a small box. Hey Jordan, hey Drew, good to have you with us, guys.
Mick says hi guys.
Hey Mick, how you going? Good to have you with us. Alrighty, let's have a look at this motherboard. So what do we get in the packet? We get one of the crappy Asus Wi-Fi antennas. Really need to put a magnet on that. And we get our motherboard in this fancy box. We have this nice Tough Gaming branded I/O shield there, so that's pretty cool. I like seeing that. We've got some SATA cables, and we're using them. Got some M2 screws, offsets, and little heat pad thing. We've got our standard instruction manuals, CD, and we've got our Asus Tough Gaming Go Faster stickers. They're really important. You know, that adds like 10% speed. That's speed. What do the kids like these days? FPS. That's 10% more FPS. Yeah. Yep, there's a lot of people in that boat right now. I have that conversation with people every day at the moment. I've had one disappointed person so far that they got their tax return back, but they were like still $600 short for the system that they wanted, that they were quoted for. So they got their tax return back, they were all keen, ready to buy, and then they're like, oh, gotta wait like 2 more weeks to get the rest of the money together. It's so frustrating when things like that happen, but hey, it is what it is. Alright, so let's have a look at this motherboard here. So, a lot of black and grey on this motherboard here, so it'll go nicely in our black case. So I've got 8 pins of CPU power up here, so obviously power our CPU. MOSFET VRM co-processors. There's direct touch heat sinks on all of them, which is good to see. There's no fins or anything on it, but that's okay. It's like decent quality chokes, ordinary capacitors, but that's fine. We've only got the 8 pins of CPU power there anyway, so we don't need anything particularly crazy fancy on this motherboard in terms of power delivery there. But we've got 2 fan headers over here, so we've got one that's grey, one that's black. So the grey one's the one that's labelled CPU, and the black one will be CPU optional. Then we have a 12 volt RGB header up here, that's these 4 pins. We've got nothing really around here. Oh, over here we've got some postcode LEDs, so these will light up and tell you what's wrong with your system if it's not turning on properly. So a lot of motherboards have these. It's one of these things I usually overlook because it's usually in a weird spot somewhere, but I can see it clearly here. So you've got boot, VGA, CPU and DRAM. So it'll tell you what the problem is if your PC isn't posting. You've got your 24 pins of RTX power, so this is what powers the rest of the systems on our motherboard here. We've got dual channel memory here, so channel 1 and channel 2. We've got a USB 3 front panel connection there, so I like that positioning there because we can tie that chunky USB 3 cable in with the RTX power cable for the motherboard, and we can kind of conceal that and make it look nice and neat. What else we got down here? We've got 4 SATA ports in the vertical position there. And we've got 2 little pins over here on their own, that's the clear CMOS header. Then obviously here we've got 4 pins here on their own, that's for our debug speakers, those little postcode speakers that go bip when you turn the computer on. We've got our front panel connections just below it there, these 9 pins there. We've got 2 USB 2 front panel connections there. We've got another fan header, so that's only a total of 3 fan headers so far. We've got another 12 volt RGB header, and then we've got a 5 volt RGB header there as well. Then we've got a COM port header, and these pins above it, that'll be the debug pins for the COM port header for running various different devices through that. So that's for the old serial ports and stuff like that.
What's the most expensive system you've ever built?
That'd probably be the Threadripper workstation. Yeah. So that was like nearly 10 grand. Nearly 10 grand for that one.
Well, Jameson's can't wait to pay for mine next week.
Yeah. Oh man, we're gonna be very busy. So luckily I got that tooth dealt with this week, not next week. So yeah, that kind of sucks. I was hanging on for ages. I was using that Nutriflor 5000 toothpaste on it every couple of days, and I kept it alive for quite a while after it initially cracked the first time. But yeah, after 18 months, it started to go, and it started to give me major pain. So I had to get it pulled. So there's a wisdom tooth right behind it that looks like it's going to slot into the empty spot. So I might get a replacement there. Well, we'll see what happens there. Anyway, we've got our front panel audio connection here, so for our speaker and microphone input on the front of our case. Then these little gold capacitors here, these are our audio capacitors. We've got our audio systems here. We've got this little tough gaming heatsink over one of the audio chips, it looks like. Yeah, audio cover, it says. And then around the back here, we've got our audio as close as possible to the other audio systems on the motherboard, because being an electrical signal, it's subject to electromagnetic interference from like other systems on the motherboard. So it's important that they try to engineer it and design it where they keep all that audio together in one spot, and you'll always see it in that corner of the motherboard on any sort of standard motherboard. And we've been using this sort of basic design layout for 20-30 years now. So hey John, how you going? Good to have you with us. What have we got around here? So we've got a pretty good I/O at the back here. So we've got a USB-C, USB 3.2 Type A. Is that 2.5 gigabit Ethernet? It is 2.5 gigabit Ethernet there. Got a display port and HDMI port, which won't be in use for this build, so we'll plug them up. We've got our Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1. So that's this little card there. It slots in. That'll be a flash BIOS button probably. Yeah, flash BIOS. 4 USB 3.0s, 2 USB 2.0s, and PS2 header there as well. And then all we've got to talk about is this stuff in the middle here. So obviously we've got our CMOS battery there. So that keeps the things like the system time and the motherboard settings. It keeps them live when you have the computer unplugged from the power and stuff like that, so it can keep track of time. You've got this little header here. This is the trusted platform module header for this ASUS motherboard. So that's the header that you need, the little chip for Windows 11. We've got our fourth fan header up here, and then we've got one PCIe X1 slot here, our X16 slot here just below it, so it's our main slot for our graphics card. And we've got another slot down here, but it's X16 length, but it's only connected X4 of the way along. So that's why you wouldn't want to plug your graphics card in down there. We've also got two M.2 slots. So this one down here with the heatsink, this is sort of designed for the main drive. So you'll put that in, install Windows on it, and then you shouldn't really have to touch it much. And the graphics card will kind of cover it up. And then you've got easy access to this slot up here, so you can add an extra one if you want later on, if you need some extra storage or whatever. Or you can add one that you take in and out and spot between different devices, and it's nice and easy to do that. Yep, he's on for Monday night because he's I was going to do it Sunday night, but he's working Sunday, so we're going to do it on Monday instead.
You want that Sunday pay?
Yeah, definitely get the Sunday pay. All right, well that's pretty much everything on this motherboard. All the basic systems anyway, other than this bit here. So this is where the B550 actually lives. So that's the chipset, and the chipset, you can kind of think of the chipset as, is there a bit of sticky over that? Yeah, there is. You can kind of think of the chipset as the thing that communicates and interfaces with all of these other systems on the motherboard, and communicates that with the CPU in like an orderly way. If not, the CPU would be like getting like completely overwhelmed with, you know, all these different commands coming in from all these different places on the motherboard. This communicates with the CPU in a nice structured way. So it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like the chain of command. You know, to get to the boss, you've got to go and you've got to speak to your boss first. And for all these other systems on the motherboard, other than the memory, the chipset is kind of the boss there. So all the USB ports and everything else that you see that's plugged in there, it's all going through the chipset. All the SATA ports and stuff is going through the chipset. So yeah, you can kind of think of it as that you know, that lieutenant in between you and the big boss, which is the CPU. So that's a colourful way of describing it there anyway, but it gives you the basic idea of what that does. And if you want to find out like specifically how it works, obviously like you should look up the detailed pages that explain it all in depth and stuff, because when I talk about it here in a live while I'm building a PC, there's only so much detail I can go into without completely stopping the whole thing short. So I just try to summarize things in a very, very simple way that people can kind of make sense of. I don't want to use too much technical terms that make it incomprehensible for people. And so what I'm doing now, I'm just checking those pins before I go to try to put it in. Because if one's just a little bit bent and you go try to put it in the socket, you could like bend it more and you could potentially bend other ones. So it's always best practice to check your AMD CPUs like this. And we'll all get a bit, you know, in a rush sometimes. We won't do it. But it'll be always that time that you don't do it that something will stuff up. Yeah, see, even then, like that wasn't. We got that in the socket fine. That's seated fine, but it was just slightly off. It didn't just fall in completely neatly, and that's what I'm talking about. Like that wasn't bad enough there to cause a problem. That if it was a bit more bent than that, it doesn't take much to put it out because they're really fine little holes there. All right, so we're actually going to be using this stock cooler here for this 3600. So if you want to overclock and put the 3600 to work, you might want to get a better cooler because it will get really hot and end up throttling itself if you completely push it to the max. But you won't need that just for gaming. That'll be if you like try to start like rendering videos and stuff on it. And you'll still be able to do it, but what happens is when it gets hot, the programming cuts the power and the voltages back to stop it from getting hot. So you lose performance if it's not cooled correctly. So this stock cooler with the 3600, this is the bare minimum that you would want for this CPU.
It's like, is that one of those ones?
No. It's not a. I don't think I've got a spare Wraith prism
Where would one be?
under there.
I'll have a look.
There's one that is mine that I
yeah, I know
use
that.
I use that
covered
one.
in grease. Yes.
Yeah, I use that
You
one.
don't want that.
I
Sims
need
anyway, he's
I need
buying
that. I need that. Okay, so the only rule when you're mounting these AMD stock coolers is just get this AMD part over here near the rear I/O because you don't want it getting in the way of memory. So, and also it'll line up the words because there'll also usually be some writing on the rear I/O there, and then you'll have that lined up with the AMD there. And so we've got pre-applied thermal paste with these, so there's no need to apply any thermal compound. All you need to do is put down the cooler. No, not in that big box.
Big box.
The brown box that was at the front. I don't think there is. That box there, to your left on the ground near the box. Is that just the normal one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not a brown box, that's a black box.
Oh,
Black.
whatever.
I was like, what brown box? What are you talking about?
Alright. Yeah, so best practice with these is to go around and just sort of screw them down slightly, then come back around to fasten them down completely. So obviously sort of half screw down 3 of them, then when you get to the 4th one you can just screw that right down, then come around and do the other 3 and tighten them back up, and then you'll have a nice solid mount on your AMD stock cooler every time. And for this cable, you can usually just wrap it around on itself there, and you'll barely see it. You really make that out. I mean, it's there, but you have to sort of like go looking for it to notice it. Okay. So we have our CPU and our cooler installed, so we'll turn our attention to the memory. So memory's like intimately related to the CPU, right? So it's always up next to the CPU there. So like when you click on something, right, and you click on a file, you got to open a program or something like that, you're sending a command to the CPU telling it to access a file. right? And so the way CPUs work, it's a cold calculating machine. It doesn't have any actual logic. It just knows how to follow machine logic, essentially. And so what I mean by that is you go and say you try to access a file. There's a little bit of memory that's actually on the CPU itself called cache. And so there's L1. The L1's the fastest, L2's the second fastest, L3's the third fastest. And so you ask for a file or a program to be accessed. The first place the CPU checks is its L1 cache because it's the fastest thing it can check. And then it checks its L2 cache, then L3, then it goes to the system memory. Tries to find it here. If it can't find it in the system memory, it checks like your hard drives, SSDs, and the network. So there's like a hierarchy that it travels down. But memory is like when you turn your computer on and Windows is loading, where do you think it's loading to? It's loading to memory. And memory can be accessed very quickly by the CPU. That's why a program might take a little while to load, but once it's loaded, it's fine, works really fast, it's really responsive, etc., because it's in memory at that stage, it's not on the storage device. Hey Tapiri, how you going?
Dylan says a black box. Is that from an airplane?
Yes, yeah, I know, right? It looks like that. Okay.
I see you got your iFixit tool fixed, mate.
Ah, yes, because I know how to like do a like dodgy fix on it. So I don't have the right tools to fix it properly. I'm not even sure what the right tools would be. I think it's something that should only be assembled on the production line. It shouldn't actually ever come loose, but for some reason mine comes loose. So you've got like bearings in there, and they both swivel, so you can't get leverage on the threaded piece to screw it back in. So what I do is I get a bit of blue tack, and I hold it in there, and then I force it down, and the blue tack sort of holds the threaded piece in place and allows me to get a little bit of leverage on it to screw it back down. But if you come really, really close, there's about 0.8 of a mil gap there, so it's not all the way back down. So this is going to stuff up again, but I know how to repair it pretty simply. But I'm thinking I might actually like send it back to iFixit, because I'm pretty sure I've read that they have like lifetime guarantee on their stuff, and that they should replace that for me.
Wants to know how's your gob.
How's my gob? Yeah, I mean, I'm talking, right? I'm not.
He's not in agony.
I'm not in agony anymore. Yeah. So I'm doing a lot better. I just feel like I've been punched in the mouth, you know? It's basically the best way of describing it. Alright, so we've got our 2 terabyte SSDs. This is a SATA SSD, so we won't worry about that one just yet, but we'll plug in our M2 SSD. And so the reason why we use these M2 ones is because they communicate with the CPU via the PCIe bus, which is different than the SATA bus. So the SATA bus is limited to roughly 600 megabytes a second. This is limited to
say SATA bus, I think it's like
a bus. It's kind of what it's referring to. Because we're talking about lanes. We talk about lanes and bus lanes and stuff like that, and it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor, you know, and it's buses and lanes, but it's a metaphor for explaining how information is sent, like electrical signals are sent. So I'm not going to get right into PCIe and how it works, but basically it's a very fast system. It can send data to the CPU at fast rates.
Why did they call it bus lane when it buses?
There's these little like electrical circuits on the motherboard, and they're like little straight lanes. lanes,
Yeah.
and they all like they
guess.
run in line parallel with
Yeah,
each other.
yeah.
They're little lanes,
That's what,
and so there's a capacity of the lane, so it's like a traffic lane.
yeah.
There's a certain amount of information could be sent through down the lane, and so we refer to them as bus lanes. And yeah,
Makes sense. You're actually a fresh man, so it's good to see.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, needed a couple of days off anyway.
Yeah. Forced break.
Yeah, it's the only time I'll have a break. Have to physically pry me away from work. Where are our offsets? And so yeah, basically these M2 SSDs, they are between 3 and like 12 times faster than a SATA SSD. So it's a big step up between the two. But the thing is, this is the other thing, right? So I'll let you in on a little secret. You can get really fast, high performance SSDs. Most of the companies make a high performance SSD. You'll usually see this as written as a Gen 4 NVMe SSD. And they're really fast, right? But for an average user, you're not going to notice the difference between one NVMe drive and another one in terms of like how fast Windows loads, how fast games load. The difference between them is minute. Basically, there's like a benefit up to a certain level of speed, and it's a significant benefit up to here. Then you hit this point of like diminishing returns, where you can be faster, but it doesn't really make any real world difference for you. It would matter if you had two of the same very fast drives and you were transferring data between them. That would make sense. But in terms of real world performance, you don't really get it. So if you see me build a PC like that's got like a Gen 4 SSD in it, it's either because the customer just wants the best of everything and isn't really concerned about the budget, or it's because they've just demanded that is what they want, and nothing's going to talk them out of it. Because normally I'll say to people, don't waste your money on that ultra fast SSD. Just get an ordinary fast SSD and spend that extra money on your graphics cards, spend that extra money on your monitor, spend that extra money on your peripherals, more memory, a bigger SSD. All of those to me are like better ways to use your money. And so that's why I advise stuff like that. Like I don't just go, all right, here's what this website says are the top parts. These are the best parts, so this is what I recommend. I don't work like that. I just I go with what's the best kind of like the best value, and I don't ever recommend people waste money in areas that's not worth wasting money in. So, all right, well, we're coming along here. So no liquid cooler to install. No crazy ass be quiet air cooler to mount that takes like 20 minutes. Now we can just worry about the case and getting it all prepped up. So let's have a look at this case. So there's been some good deals on these recently, and I couldn't get the D600 flux that I normally use, but what's that? Oh, I thought you said something. I think it was your mum saying coughing or something downstairs. Alright. So yeah, as I said, it comes with 4 pre-installed Silverstone Airblazer 120mm fans. So that's always good to see. like having pre-installed RGB fans in the case, and
Really light too.
it's a nice light case, yeah. You can fit a 360mm radiator at the front, but you will have to play around with the fan positioning there to fit it. So that's just one little strike, I guess you could say. Okay, what have we got down here? We've got mounting hardware. Got a 3.5-inch drive tray here. We've got a little 2.5-inch bay here. Oh, what's the trick with these? Oh, it's a bit short. Alright, so let's get our 2.5-inch SATA SSD in place. So if you don't know who Crucial are, Crucial is a consumer SSD and memory brand by a company called Micron. Now, Micron are one of the big four companies that produce things like NAND flash memory, DRAM, etc., etc. They have they've built their business in the commercial sector, supplying businesses. Like they're the sort of people who go, oh yeah, you want to set up a multi-million-dollar server, yeah, we'll look after you with all the gear you need. That's where they've made their money. And so you might not know of Crucial, you might not have heard of that brand, but they are up there with Samsung and all the other big tech names that you may or may not know. So they're up there with like a Western Digital, a Samsung. They're the same, just another player at that scale. So yeah, you may not have heard of the brand, but they've been around for ages. They're probably they're North American based, I believe.
And Tim Lily says massive hello tonight.
Hey Ben, hey Lily, how you going? Good to have you with us. Now what do we get in here? So we get an RGB controller with this case. So even if you've got a crappy motherboard, you can still hook up that RGB bling. Now, is that a fan? Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Guys, you didn't have to.
Birthday present.
Oh.
They knew your birthday.
You shouldn't have. You shouldn't have. So this is a 1-to-4 fan splitter here. So what I can do with this is we can run it down here underneath the I/O shield, nice and sneaky. We can plug it into this port here, and then what we can do is we can just run that up there, out the back, and plug all our fans in out the back. Nice and easy. Alright, and we got an RGB controller. We don't really need that. Alright, so let's get our SSD mounted away. It's always good to go with an SSD over a hard drive if you can these days. You can get a 2TB SSD for around the $250 mark. It's not a bad way to go. You'll never have to worry about the SSD failing, essentially. go. One SSD installed. So look at this power supply in the case. Alright. So here it is. This is our Silverstone, no sorry not Silverstone, Cooler Master 750 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. And so we've got 3 fans on the front and only 1 fan on the back there. So I am tempted, yeah definitely move it there. So I'm tempted to remove this SSD tray here. So I can put it on the back here. Then we've got a bit of room there above. Then I can actually mount the power supply face up, and we can use the power supply fan to exhaust some of the heat from the case along with that rear fan. It's always good to have balanced airflow in your case.
Tim needs to buy me a better tripod. He keeps saying that, but he doesn't do it.
Oh, just you talked about me needing to buy you a better tripod. Just made me think of the episode of Family Guy where Consuela, the Mexican cleaning lady, she's in court and she's like saying that she needs more lemon pledge, and the company she works for, her lawyer goes, "Well, if you need more lemon pledge, that should be something that you just bring from home. Bring some more from home." Just like that's the solution. That's what you made me think of. So
what are you trying to say? That
what am I trying to say?
Bring my own tripod.
I'm trying to say that you should just buy one, and then be like, I bought this, give me money for it, and then I would just give you money for it, if that makes sense. Okay, so what do we need in this case? We only need 1 SATA power. We need obviously PCIe power, but we don't need 2 cables. We do need CPU power. We do need ATX power. So, as for the rest of this stuff, just leave. Yep.
So that will case in as well with my monitor too.
Yeah, no, it's good, mate. Like I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, it was like a last minute substitution there, but all those other cables tied down at the back there. So I've just zip tied all them, but I left the SATA cable free just to plug in. Just like that. There we go. And so now we've just got these cables here, these cables here, and we've got a whole heap of other cables out the other side of the case for our fans. So let's bring them. Yeah.
Dylan says how much for the cat, Tim?
Ah!
More than you want to pay.
Oh yes. He's going to be getting a YouTube channel soon because he's actually legitimately worthwhile doing that with.
He's so cute.
It's not just that he's cute.
He does the most cutest shit that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh,
You'll have to actually see what.
I'll upload a video to.
We'll do something soon. We'll do something soon.
PC and show you guys.
Yeah, we should probably put his videos on Tim's PC channel.
No, you can't. Go on. Go that way.
Okay, got all those cables running out the back there now. So let's put our I/O shield in and get our motherboard in place. But one thing I want to do before I do too much else, because we got a micro ATX board and we're going to be putting it into an ATX case.
Aw, no. Bugger off.
What?
John says catch a lot of fish with a cat. You can catch a lot of fish with a dog too. Did you know that?
Nah. He's
I know.
he's lazy. Ours is lazy, man. He wouldn't do anything.
People joke about using them as crab bait, you know.
Yeah.
But you can use a dog. The same thing, right? That's just evil. Why would you want to do that?
Okay. And this one as well. Okay. I swear I had like 6 zip ties out here on the table just before. So I'm going to run these cables on the bottom behind the motherboard. This is a little bit harder to do, but just makes it look so much cleaner at the end. It's all just for show here. It's not. There's no functional reason why you have to do this. In fact, it probably makes it a little bit harder to work on, but I'm willing to sacrifice that for it looking ultra clean.
So,
Yeah.
John says, cat got you zip ties. You know what? He probably did because he fucking loves those things.
Yeah, he does. Hey babe, can you come hold some cables for me?
I guess.
You just hold them so I can get the motherboard like kind of down, and then we can. Okay. Yeah, cool.
You alright?
Yeah.
Oh, the cat's in the fucking seat already. Dude, I just stood up.
Oh, this is going to be tight. Oh, yay. We're short a couple of offsets. This will be fun. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
well, it says 90% high-tech computer parts, 10% my grandma's net cabinets. It's great aesthetic. Tim.
Yeah.
Long time no see.
Hey man, how you going?
Yeah, Tim's had a bit of a problem with his tooth last couple of days. He had to get a tooth removed yesterday.
Yeah. So that was a bit of fun.
He's doing better today.
Everyone loves getting like a big tooth ripped out of your mouth and like a centimetre cubed like hole in the side of your
like
jaw.
one of your molars.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Made the cat jump.
Okay, so now I've got 2 screws in, we're all done. No. Seriously. Yeah. Just these cables at the back being all different length. They're just being a little bit prickish. But like I said, I'm doing this to myself, right?
Making life hard for yourself.
Yeah.
Good at that.
Okay, so that's all looking nice and neat down the bottom there. You can't see any cables there. They're all plugged in behind the motherboard. So now let's get the rest of these screws in place and then we can plug in our power. We can fire her up. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely good. Like, the white is really popular these days, but I think black is still slightly more popular, like overall, if we looked at the data.
design that they've done on the inside of the mesh.
Yeah.
You could put extra fans in there if you wanted, right?
Yeah, of course you could. Yeah, you could fit another 4 fans in that case. Okay. Yes, there was one more. Top corner. My favourite place. Okay. Alrighty. So let's deal with all of these RGB cables and stuff. Okay, so we've got a couple of fans here, and there should be another fan. Fan number 3, and fan number 4. So we'll plug in to this fan splitter, or almost called it a controller, but it's not really a controller, it's a splitter. Let's get that RGB cable. Oh, this RGB cable is going to be the first one. As for our fans, we can just tie them up here. Find a zip tie. No, it's too hard. There we go. So now we're just left with all of this RGB daisy chain up. So we're going to run these cables back along the same way that we ran our fans, and we're going to tie them up at the top there, just like that. And then we're going to plug in our daisy chain of RGB there. So let me just tile these down. Okay. So we've got this plugged in. Oh, and that's got they've just done that with extensions. Okay, cool. That's fine. Then all we got to do is just plug one into the next one. Got one. Oh yeah, that fits pretty well actually. That's good. Okay, we've got all of those RGB cables connected. Make sure that sits around there. Alright, so now we've just got the rest of this to plug in. So let's start with the CPU, which we're going to run up the side here. Okay, so a couple of cables to neaten up there, but most of it is looking pretty good. So we can plug in our motherboard ATX power and the USB 3. So I reckon we come in from the top. There we go. So they're nice and neatly in place there. Now, all we have is our graphics card, which Christine put down there. When I buy those jeans, what are they? These are Dexter, so I would have got these at like City Beach years ago. But you can't get like good jeans anymore. If you grew up in like the 90s, late 80s, 90s, you're probably like baggy skater jeans like me.
The only place I can suggest men to buy baggy jeans is on Wish. Because I've found a few pairs on actually really good. You just gotta, know what you're looking at.
Yep. Because I hate skinny jeans and all that kind of stuff, eh? Skinny jeans are for chicks.
Well, they're saying not anymore.
They.
I will decide on what I want to wear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Alrighty, so here it is. The RTX 3060. So I'm gonna remove some of these plugs from the back of the graphics card. I'm gonna put them in the motherboard because the display outputs on the motherboard aren't actually active because a 3600 does not have onboard graphics. So I'll put those two little plugs in there so that people know that they're not in use. Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to find this sort of stuff, eh? You want to show them the graphics card?
Yeah. Hang on. It's like sticky.
Oh no.
Yeah. Shut up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Ooh,
6.
You're
7,
asking for it,
8,
aren't you?
9. No, I'm just quantifying the delay of what removing all the stickers takes. And after all that, she didn't even get all the stickies off.
Oh, fuck you. I thought you already pulled that one off. I just assumed you did that one.
Oh, you got trolled.
No, I did. There's something hard.
Okay. Now we just have the graphics card cable to run and a SATA cable. So, yeah.
Will that graphics card handle any game too?
Yeah. Yep, 3060 is a sort of run any modern game card. Maybe some will be like not as high a frame rate on high settings as like a 3070 or a 3080, but that's exactly what you would expect. But if you get a PC with a 3060 in it in 2021, you can run any game you want.
Tim.
Yeah.
John says cops looking for you, Tim.
Cops looking for me? What do you mean?
Oh, there was some sirens.
Oh yeah.
They were always looking for him.
Yeah. I'm on the most wanted list. You gangster. Okay.
Tim.
Yeah.
Dylan wants to know, one more thing, can you say, hi, I'm Tim from Tim's PC, that's my favourite line.
Hi, I'm Tim from Tim's PC. There you go. Okay. One gaming PC. So let's hook it up and see if I did everything right.
No fashion show tonight, or do you really want to see what I'm wearing tonight? It's Punk Christine tonight.
Do you want to do the honours?
Yes, yes I do.
One of those fans doesn't put it up.
No.
Let's have a look.
It was PJs the other night. You're... That's right.
Ah, yep. There you go. All fans. Okay, we should be getting a post. Yep.
Red ducks. They're actually fluoro pink. Like really hot pink.
Sweet, alright. So let's go and put our XMP profile on our memory. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, Windows set up. Okay, let's get this set up as quickly as possible. Okay, let's get Windows installed. Let's plug in our SATA SSD now that Windows is installing. And the reason why I do that is a technical reason to do with the way that the Windows installer sets up Windows. There's a reason why I only have the drive that I want Windows installed on connected, especially when we're talking about M2 NVMe and M2 SATA SSDs.
Tim
Yeah.
says, continue it again. You'll be happy, Jordan. And Mark says, when my friends ask me how you Friday night, I can say it was great. I watched a dude build a computer and it was amazing. Nice.
Well, let's piece together this Wi-Fi antenna. This Windows is coming along. Okay, let's get our mouse in position, ready for the shutdown. Here we go. See how fast I am? Okay. Okay. Alright, it's installed Australia. Yes, skip. No. Okay, now we'll plug in some internet. Unplug that. Plug in my SSD. Oh, we're in Windows. Yes, let's get Armory Crate installing. Let's just tidy up some of this mess. Put down some custom desktop icons, keep everything nice and organized. Alrighty, so what do we got here? We have NVIDIA. Let's get these NVIDIA drivers installed. Let's get some of this stuff. It's quick and easy. Okay. Don't need IQ. SI Afterburner. Okay. So we get VLC. VLC is a media player that'll play any video file. Pretty much if VLC doesn't play it, it's a virus. Yep.
Says that looks it, and he says your chair needs some WD-40.
Yeah. It's actually missing a bolt. That's why it's got a bit of movement there. Okay, Crucial Storage Executive. It's for our SSDs. Okay, that's coming along. Let's get... Okay. Let's get BattleNet. Alrighty. Oh, yep, there's one more that I forgot that I always install. Office 365. I don't think there's anything else on there. We don't have any Corsair. No, it doesn't look like it. Yeah, I know. But it all has to be done, and I do a proper install of on every new computer, so you don't have problems from me cloning hard drives and stuff. Because there's a shortcut to this, but shortcut's a shortcut. There's a reason why it's a shortcut and not the way. I know something I need to do. I need to set up our drive in. There's nothing I'm installing off that at the moment. I can unplug that. I need to install our SATA SSD.
Tim.
Yeah.
Alex says this is the way. Indeed.
And there it is. Okay, let's disable those startup apps. It's always annoying when they turn on automatically every time you open your computer up. Turn them off. Set the date and time. Oh, where am I? Where's this guy live? What time zone do I set it to?
Ask wrong person.
Whereabouts are you from, Jordan? Newcastle, sweet. Africa. Yeah, I'll set your time zone to Africa. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
skill meet.
Oh, well, we're nearly ready for a reboot.
Nick says all of a sudden, I hear Toto in the background. I love that song. Jordan says, is there tutorials on how to work this thing?
No, well, a lot of the stuff I'm installing here, you won't have to touch unless you have a problem. And if you have a problem, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing will make your life easier because it'll help you work out what the problem is. So as you can see, there's a fair bit of stuff to like get right here. That's all good. Don't need any of this stuff. I think there's more modern BIOS than 0603. Never trust these in-app BIOS things. I find they're wrong so many times. We're going to enable momentum caching on our boot drive. Okay, so we've just got this final reboot. There's some Windows updates to apply, and once we get back to the desktop, there'll be some final cumulative updates to apply for Windows, and then we'll be all good to go. Okay, just got all the panels back on the case there. Get those cumulative Windows updates. And let's get this all sorted. So this is the graphics card fan control here, so we're just making sure that once it gets hot it will go to 100%. They have them tuned for silence. And what I'm doing here, I'm setting up the in-game overlays, which you can turn on and off, but it'll show you all the stuff that I'm selecting here. So if you want to see if your PC's getting too hot while you're gaming or whatever, maybe it's running slow at a certain point and you want to see what's going on. So these are the controls to turn it on and off. So Control F11 to turn it on, Control F12 to turn it off. Apply that. Okay, so let's first have a look at our SSDs. So let's go to our main SSD here, so do a quick speed test on it. So nice and fast there on our main SSD. And so this is the one that's going through the PCIe bus. Like I said, that's way faster. There's another one here called Crystal Disk Info. This is kind of like a scan tool for the car, but for your storage devices. So it keeps track of all these error codes and stuff. Yep, both of them. It also tells you the health. 100%, 100%. And you can tell these are brand new because, oh hang on, you can't see that properly. You can tell these are brand new because it says power on count 1. So it's been turned on once, and neither of them have even been on for an hour yet. And we can see all that there. If you click the little mascot, it plays a little sound, a happy sound if it's a happy drive. And then yeah, we see our PCIe SSD there. And if we go to our SATA SSD and run the same test, Windows Update should be all sorted. This is CPU ID. This tells you all information about your system. So you got a Ryzen 5 3600, and it's got all the various statistics about it. Information about the cache, we'll talk about that earlier. L1, L2 and L3. More information. Information on our memory. Information on our graphics card. And over here we can run a bench test. So I'll actually wait till we finish doing stuff over here. So as you can see here, it's basically 1/10 of the speed of going through the PCIe bus. Much faster. But once you get about this sort of speed there with a storage device, you don't really notice a great deal of difference above that. It does get a bit faster, but like I said, you get to a point of diminishing returns with SSD speeds. Oh, for fuck's sake. She won't come in. She won't. Oh, she did. What a surprise. Okay, I think I accidentally stopped the test then, but that's alright, you get the point.
You guys get to see the small one. She's almost like the other one, but her ear's kind of floppy and she's got shorter hair. Tim calls her Medic.
Yep, she's a fucking nedic. Alrighty. For that cat, oh, mate, I am open to offers.
No.
So we can go submit and compare here. So you can benchmark your CPU, and it'll show you all the stats over here. But you can click over here, and then you can compare your CPU with other CPUs. You can see this is the single core results. The Ryzen 3600 around the 500 mark, which is pretty good. So you can see all the CPUs that are above it are these like high-end CPUs, ones that cost twice or more what a 3600 costs. So these ones that are beating it aren't really a fair comparison. The only thing you could sort of compare it to would be this one here, which is really just saying a lot about AMD's significant generational increase. So the 5600X is kind of like the replacement of the 3600 and the 3600X, and you can see quite a significant generational leap there with those CPUs. Excuse me. And if we go over to multi-thread, we can see once again some of these other CPUs here are beating it, but they are all either more expensive, more modern, or both, essentially. So the 11th gen Intel chips perform really well, and they're really good budget options right now. The Ryzen 5 46, the 4000 series APUs, the ones here, 4600G, 4650G, 4400G. So these are all really good performing CPUs in their own right, and they have onboard graphics as well. So they're good budget options if you can get your hands on the actual chips. And hardware monitor. This just logs all of your temperatures and voltages and everything that's running through your system, so you can check that and keep track of all that. Make sure nothing's overheating. Same for your graphics card down here. And yeah, so now I guess everyone just wants to see how the system runs at some benchmarks. So the first one we'll run here is Heaven. We're just going to run this on the standard settings that come when you install it. And I do the same, I do run the benchmarks on the same settings every night, so you can get a good idea of where each system sits. Because if we ran like different ones every night, you'd have no idea. Oh, where's... Sorry. There we go. So that's statistics overlay. All these numbers here. Control F11 to turn it on rather, and Control F12 to turn it off. And so this number here, this 180, that is the FPS that's running at. Yep. Well, I can download COD for you if you wanna give me your login or whatever. I'll just leave it on tonight after I do the stress test on it. It's all good. My internet's pretty good here. Yeah, no, it will be good for you to set it up yourself because then when it comes to installing new games and all that, it would make it a little bit easier for you. So I'll show you. So you probably see me make this games folder here. Now I've installed these 4 apps here. So Battle.net, Epic, Origin, and Steam. So basically Battle.net is all your Activision stuff. Epic Games is like Fortnite and similar. Origin is all your EA stuff. And Steam is like kind of like everything. They've got the widest range of games on Steam. So these services are kind of like, it's kind of like Netflix. You can, but there's 2 ways you can do it. You can either subscribe to them and get access to a whole heap of games, and it's like a recurring fee, or you can buy games like a virtual store and just download them, like what you would have, like buying and downloading a game on a console from the eShop. So you can do that, or you can pay for a subscription to give you access to heaps of games. So mostly people usually just opt for paying a one-time fee for the games that they want to play, and then they download them and save them. And so when you go into Steam, or any of those, it'll get you to say where you want to store your library. So you want to try to keep C drive clear. You want to try to install most of your games onto your SSD there. So you want to change it from the C drive to the D drive when you go to download your games in these apps here. So just one little technical thing to do there, but then you're just telling it to download and install games onto this 2 terabyte drive here. Then you've got plenty of room on C drive to download whatever off the internet, install whatever applications that you want to run and all that. And then fundamentally what's important is if anything goes wrong with Windows, all your games will be stored on this other drive. Then you can just delete Windows and reinstall Windows, and then you don't have to download all your games again. So I set computers up like this, and sometimes I sort of forget to kind of go through with the customer why it's set up like this. Because like I had a guy just today, I think, like send me a screenshot. He'd like maxed out his C drive, and then he had like a 2 terabyte drive that was empty. He hadn't changed the like default save location for the games, and it was saving all the games he was downloading onto that C drive. And obviously that's only got 465 gigs free, and this has got 1.8 terabytes free, so you want to install them on that. So if you've got a game that you play all the time, and you want it to load as quick as possible, you can install that onto C, and then install the games that you don't play as often onto D. So you can still make use of that, because this is the fast one, this is the slower one. So they're both really, basically, compared to hard drives, they're both fucking lightning fast, right? It's just one is like an order of magnitude faster than the other. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an insight there, because you got that, obviously got that second SSD there, so that would be for the bulk of your games. If you get a game you play every day, install it onto C drive, it'll probably load a couple of seconds faster for you. Which might not sound like much, but if it's something you do every day, yeah, that couple of seconds faster loading time, that's cool, you know. It's sometimes like loading different levels and stuff in these games can actually take quite a while, so that's where it comes in handy to have it on a fast drive. But like I said, it's not a huge difference. The main thing is have it on an SSD and not a hard drive, and it will load way faster. Yeah, so that's that. So the next benchmark I run here is this one called Valley. but I turn up the settings to maximum, so quality to ultra, and anti-aliasing up to the maximum it supports here. And so anti-aliasing is, so you know how you would have seen, like, you've seen old games, and like you'd look at like a say it's like a curved line, it's on an angle. When you got really close to it, you could see that it was like it wasn't actually a nice curve. It's actually like blocky, and it has that like jagged edges to it, to that line. Well, anti-aliasing is kind of like an algorithm that smooths over those edges. So the higher you run it, the more of a tax on performance you'll get, but then the quality of the images that get rendered is higher. Level of detail appears better. You see less distortion when you get closer to things, etc., etc. So you'll see that in your game settings, and it's one thing if you're running a game and you're like, oh, I wish I'd got more FPS. Turning anti-aliasing off is an easy way to get more FPS. Yeah, so Jordan, these are all the RGB on this, in this case, and on the motherboard and stuff, is addressable. So you can adjust the light patterns, colors, and all that through Armory Crate. I'll show you that when we run this benchmark. But yeah, the default is like a rainbow pattern usually on most things. On Aorus motherboards, the default is like an orange color, because that's their Aorus and orange. That's their sort of color. And so yeah, maybe I should run this with anti-aliasing on and off, so you can see that the difference that it makes. But it basically smooths out those jagged edges. So it's one of those things. Anti-aliasing is something that, you know, I'd normally, if I was playing a first-person shooter game, I'd probably turn anti-aliasing off. I'd probably prefer more performance and a smoother, more consistent frame rate than every little pixel on the screen being as sharp as possible. I don't really care about that. As long as I could see my targets, I'd be pretty happy. And so a lot of people will turn various settings off. Fortnite, a good one, is turning the 3D resolution down slightly. That can have a big increase in FPS with very little reduced quality. But there are all sorts of things you can play around. That's the beauty of PC, is it's all customizable. You can do whatever you want. The only limit is the hardware that you've got, basically. But yeah, essentially, games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, GTA, Red Dead Redemption, games like that, where it's like you're playing a character and you've got to work your way through missions and stuff. Role-playing games, they're the sort of games where you want to have all of the graphics settings absolutely tanked on maximum and stuff, because frames per second isn't really very important in those games. It's usually more immersive to have those games running and looking as good as they can. Whereas when it's a first-person shooter game, I would suggest that how good each frame looks is less important as to the actual frame rate and just whether or not you can see the target clearly. So, alright, that is Valley. And so if I open up, I'll show you. There's an app here called Armory Crate, and it's going to open up like this. And if you click up here to this pool cube, not pool cube, pool triangle looking thing, it'll show you up here. So it's got your motherboard, memory, and the addressable header. And we can go over to Aura Effects here. So currently there we're on rainbow, so we can go static, and then we can adjust our color here. So we could go, I like a nice dark indigo blue personally. But yeah, what's your favorite color? There's all these different modes, so breathing, strobing, you can have it on a color cycle, rainbow, starry night. You can set it to act as a temperature gauge for your hardware, so that's what this smart one does. Dark mode. There's Aura Creator, you can get really technical and create your own patterns and stuff, but I mean, most people just stick to the standard ones. So what's weird is when I put it on, because we've got the memory looks more purple and the fans look more blue at that color setting. If I change it just slightly, yeah, now the memory looks a bit more blue. But you can unsync various devices. So if you don't want something to be affected by it, you can turn it off. See if I can get another shade that I really like. It's like really like, yeah, pretty much that. It's like, it looks better in person, but it's like this color that's so red that it's orange and so orange that it's red. It looks like fluorescent compared to the colors that are around it. So that's a cool one that I like. What else is pretty cool? You can do multiple colors and stuff like that. You can play around with it. Alright, so the last one we do is our 4K gaming performance. So 4K optimized, DirectX. Let's run this test. Yeah, you'll have fun playing around with the lighting effects and stuff like that, getting it just right. Yeah, I mean you can fit a 240mm all-in-one liquid cooler at the top here, and that could go on the CPU. That could give you a bit more cooling capacity. Could like overclock or something like that, and it'd be okay. You could install some RGB strips if you wanted to add a bit more light to the case. Yeah, but I mean, all in all, I'm thinking that this case with this configuration is going to be completely fine for a gaming PC. If you wanted to do like video editing and stuff like that, if you wanted to do just a little bit casually, it'd be fine. If you wanted to do it a bit more seriously, I'd definitely recommend getting a better cooler for the CPU. It'll just get the job done faster for you, basically. And then yeah, you could put another couple of fans on the bottom there. There's holes to mount them. So yeah, there are things you could do. So yeah, just FYI, the last two benchmarks we were running were at 1080p resolution. This one's at 4K resolution. So you're seeing a lower frame rate here, but remember this is 4K images that are being rendered, not 1080. So it's essentially 4 times the size. What sort of monitor do I run? Okay, so I've got a standard, just a 60 hertz 4K monitor, which is just like it's just like an ordinary display. Then I've got a gaming monitor, which is an Asus 165 hertz ROG. I don't remember the model number. 27-inch, 165 hertz IPS, and yeah, 1440p. That's, to me, that's the sweet spot for a gaming monitor. 1440p, 27-inch, 144 to 165 hertz. That's like the best sort of price performance and stuff right now. You know, if you just get a 1080 at 144 plus hertz IPS, 27-inch, you'll probably pay like 80% of the cost of a 1440p one. So it's generally worth it just to get the 1440p one. But there are often really good specials on 27-inch 1080p 144 hertz monitors. So don't take what I'm saying here as absolute gospel, because the price is the ultimate Lord and Savior here. So we've walked through those benchmarks there. We've gone through Armory Crate and a few other things. Got hardware monitor open here, so I'm going to do the stress test now. This will be towards the end of our video. So what we're doing here is we're gonna basically stress the CPU with what's called a synthetic load. So this is going to be much more intensive than how you're going to use the computer. So basically, if it passes the stress test here with this synthetic load, there's no organic, real world, like, use scenario where you're going to ever stress it as much as what we do in this stress test. Okay, unless because what we're basically going to do here is we're going to run a 3D game, and we're going to try and render a video as well. So running a 3D game will completely tax the graphics card. Right, the graphics card will be at 100% utilization. It'll just sit there. And if we're trying to render a video, we're gonna end up taxing the CPU 100%, all cores, all threads, full power. So we're never actually going to use a computer like this, because if you're the sort of person who needs to play games while you're rendering a video, then you're the sort of person who's buying like a significantly more high-end PC. You'd be spending like twice as much as what Jordan spent on this PC here if you were that kind of person, that kind of power user, I guess you would say. But anyway, we'll start it off, and this is how it goes. So this app here is not something you want to use on old hardware because it is pretty intensive. But essentially, this furry donut looking thing here, all those little tiny strands are points that the graphics card is calculating. So while it's doing this weird oscillation movement, it's calculating where each of those points are while the whole object is moving down a 3D corridor. So it's the graphics card's doing maths like crazy to calculate this image, right? That's why it's sitting there at like 98% usage, right? And over here, okay, so what's happening over here? So if we go into Task Manager here in Windows and go to CPU, we can see these 12 boxes here, and they're being used 100% here. The graph is showing the usage. And down here in the picture, we also see 12 blue boxes, just like these 12 blue boxes, because these 12 blue boxes and these 12 blue boxes are the same. This is each of the CPU's 12 threads working on calculating this image. So this image is much bigger than what you see. So it's not like a little tiny picture that it's working on. It's actually a massive picture that it's working on. We just see it nice and small here for testing purposes. And so what we're doing here, this is sort of like rendering a video. We can go back to our furry donut here. And so as we can see, the CPU is getting very, very warm there doing this video editing workload here. And so normally what I will do with a 3600 with a stock cooler, because I don't want to just melt the CPU for just the sake of doing the stress test. I know how it's going to perform. So I'm going to go and open up this app here called Ryzen Master. And what Ryzen Master is going to let me do, Ryzen Master is going to let me apply a standardized base clock rate while I do the stress test, which will mean if we go up here, we got to 95 degrees. 95 degrees is the T-junction for this chip, so that's as hot as it can get before it starts to cut its power. Alright? And so now it will run it. Oh, and it's running even hotter. Let's give it a bit more tune so we can undervolt it. Still getting pretty warm there. So I'm going to bring it down 1.25. Looks like 1.2 will be a much better rate, much better voltage for this. Will even be stable down here. So a lot of the time CPUs will actually be kind of over volted from factory. They do this to ensure maximum stability, but what it means is they can get a bit hot. But see, I don't think the manufacturers really care if things get hot, because if things get hot and they die, then you go buy another one, they make another sale. So they don't really give a shit. They do the bare minimum, right? So I know from experience that with a stock cooler that these get very, very hot during my stress test. So I know what sort of voltage that I'd want to be running it on. And so, or you might go, oh, so why am I doing this? Shouldn't the stress test like either fail or succeed? Why am I manipulating the parameters? Well, the reason is it's the limitation of the actual stock cooler that AMD includes with the Ryzen 3600. So because of that limitation, I have to make some manual adjustments in order for it to pass my stress test. Because for me, it hitting red line is unacceptable. Running under the red line is fine. That is the CPU running at within normal parameters, within expected temperatures. It's like when your car temperature is like right in the middle there. It's like a perfect operational temperature. And as long as it stays like in that around that middle bar, either just slightly under it, just slightly over it, as long as it stays around there, your car is very happy. If it goes over or under that, then it's not as happy. And so it's looking like it's going to sit here, this stress test, between 90 and 91 degrees. 1.175 voltage for the CPU at 3.6 gigahertz. And so this is the sort of settings that we're seeing. This settings here, this is what you'd want to be running if you've got a 3600 and you want to do video editing with it. Because this will run your CPU at a temperature that it won't actually throttle down. It will actually just run. So I don't think I even started this properly, so yeah, so you can definitely look at buying an aftermarket cooler and stuff in the future, but honestly, it's not gonna make a big difference to you just like running games. You know what I mean? Like if you were watching the temperatures even before I cut any of the voltage with Ryzen Master there, it wasn't getting too hot at all. It was sitting at like in the 70s at maximum. And so that's what it's going to be like in most games for you. There would be some CPU intensive games that it might get a bit warmer and stuff, and a tune like that might be more relevant. But that's why I install that Riva Tuner statistics server on everyone's computer, because it makes it really easy to see, if in a certain game, the CPU usage is huge in a certain game, and my CPU is getting hot, and that's why I start getting a reduced frame rate after I've been playing for 10 minutes or something like that. You can see all that stats here, and then you can just control F12 turn it on and off if it wants to respond for me. Make me a liar. No, it's not responding in this app for some reason, but it will work because we set it. Alright. So, you go up here. 90-minute run. And we're going to start that up. Might get into hardware monitor again just so I clear the data. Let's see what our actual maximums are when we do this. Okay. See that that's all I need to see. So yeah, this is the point of the night where I throw open to everyone else. Have you got any other questions before I sign off? Because now's the time to get in. And so yeah, the settings will be returned to the default settings after the stress test here. And yeah, just reiterating the reason why I cut the voltage here with 3600s with the stock cooler is that they just get too hot running this stress test. And that's just a limitation of the stock cooler they come with. AMD were trying to get as many of these out as they could, and yeah, they were happy to have them all running hot. But they figured that a lot of people that were going to buy them were going to buy an aftermarket cooler to go with it as well. So, and they figured that if you're going to use the stock cooler, you probably won't be using it as hard as some of the other people who would buy that extra cooler. So I think that's probably part of the rationale there, but still it's kind of annoying for ordinary people. They buy it and then they're like, why is it like getting too hot and shit? And it's like, well, yeah, 3600 stock cooler. But, you know, like I said, it doesn't get too hot when you just playing games. It's just when we do shit like this. What's interesting though, with the next gen Ryzen chips, the 5600X, that CPU runs very, very cool. You can have that thing completely maxed out, and with an aftermarket cooler on it, I can't even get it to go over 70 degrees. I remember one was like one of the first ones I'd done with a 360mm AIO on it, and I was trying to get it to go over 60 degrees, and I even installed a couple of apps that I don't even normally install just because they stress CPUs big time, just trying to get it to go higher than 60 degrees, and I couldn't get it to go higher than 60. So they've done something with their new architecture that was a big improvement from their old one. See you later, Dylan. Have a good night, man. Yeah, so we're all done. I'm just about to sign off. Got the stress test going with the stock cooler, so I had to undervolt it like I always have to do. I was explaining to everyone why I do that. No, I think that's pretty much it for the night. So yeah, happy days. This was a nice, smooth, straightforward build tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow night. We've got another one on tomorrow night, so that'll be a bit of fun as well. So yeah, be sure to check that one out. I don't know what I'm doing Sunday. Definitely got one on Monday. I think I've got one on Tuesday. And I've probably got one on all the other days from then, because there's a shitload of orders coming in, so... No worries. Alright everyone, so thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.